Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as Manchester United add another specific position to their definite transfer list. But also, Erik ten Hag calls out Manchester United moaners and demands respect before he even walks in the door. Lots to talk about tonight. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the United Stand and let's get into the show. So yes, we'll just start off with a story that's come out in the Telegraph that Manchester United will 100% sign at least one centre-back this summer. Well, I mean, is that breaking news? It's slow sports news in a way because we are going to buy a centre-back. We're 100% going to buy a striker. We're 100% going to buy a midfielder. We know we're getting those three positions. It's whether we get two midfielders, two centre-backs, two forwards to take us to 4 or 5 positions is going to be the interesting thing. But I want to start off with, I actually want to talk about the centre-back position as well because I've got a very interesting thing I want to show you here. I'm going to play this through in a minute, but look at those blue dots. That's 4 opposition players. And I want to ask you, out of our current centre-backs, who can thread a ball through 3 of those blue players into the feet of Bruno from there consistently. Not as a one-off, consistently, because I saw a tweet about this earlier, which I replied to, and I think it's a great point. So, let's get on with the thing I want to talk about. Ten Hag calls out United players. Now, this is coming in from the Mirror, and what they're basically saying is that Erik ten Hag wants to speak individually, even if it's on a Zoom call, which it probably will have to be. He wants to speak individually to every single Manchester United player, whether they're out of contract and leaving in the summer or what. He wants to speak to every single Manchester United squad player before he comes into the club, so probably before the end of the season, on a Zoom call to establish whether they want to stay or go and what their issues are at the football club. And I think this is a welcome bit of news, and it's a logical bit of news, because if I was in Erik ten Hag's position, I want to do exactly the same. Now, some people think, well, you know what? Rangnick's already told him such and such is a load of shit. He won't want to talk to him. But you've got to be your own boss. You've got to be your own boss. He cannot just take Rangnick's word that this player's shit, this player's shit, this player's shit, because ultimately they might not be shit in the way that he wants to manage or the way that he wants to develop Manchester United. So he's got to speak to them individually. Also, he's got to speak to them in the way that, look, I think it would be worthwhile speaking to Paul Pogba. I think it's genius. I think it's absolute genius to speak to every single player before the end of the season, before he comes into the club, so that when he comes in at the start of July, he's already has a bit of a relationship, but he also understands what the issue is. Please do a bit on Klosterman this week, says Kevin Burrell. He's going to bloody Dortmund. What's the point? Klosterman's going to Dortmund, isn't he? So I don't know what that's all about. But I think it's really important because if I was the manager of Manchester United and Ralph Rangnick's going to tell me about all the issues, and I'm going to look at the league table, and I'm going to look at Wikipedia, and this is the worst Man United squad we've ever had in Premier League history, then I want to know what the issues are. And I'm going to learn it. And what it also said in that article is that this will also be the thing that determines who the captain's going to be, because he's going to speak to every single player about the issues. He's also going to get to know each player before he even comes into the club and make his own mind up so that when he starts in July, this is my way. Because the last thing, really important the last thing you want is what Moyes did, where Erik ten Hag starts at the start of July, doesn't know what players he wants, doesn't know who's going to leave, doesn't know who his captain's going to be, doesn't know anything about the players. This is a completely... I suspect this was mentioned in his interview as well. This is genius, absolute genius, even though it's logical. Speak to every player before you start so that each player isn't waiting there on July the 1st to meet him. They know a little bit about him. And he's done it on a one-on-one as well. Because if he turns there up on the training ground at Carrington, there's 30 players there. Hi, I'm Eric. Hi, Eric. You might not speak individually to a player for 2 or 3 weeks. But if you speak individually to each player on a Zoom call or something like that, before it starts, I know it sounds a bit amateurish, but actually you get a one-on-one situation, half an hour chat with them, maybe an hour chat with them. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and it will just break down the barrier and make the players feel closer to the manager as well. Could you call my neighbour Chris a wrong 'un, says Carl. Welcome to the Members Club, D. Zusif. Thank you everyone who's joining the Members Club, by the way. Some fantastic... there's another poll up for you, actually, on what you want your next exclusive video to be. I think it's a deep dive transfer on Nunez and there's a few other players. Check it out anyway. Do you think academy players will have an important role under Ten Hag? Will they have at Ajax? 100%, Jameson Gray, 100%. Don't you think bringing in more than 4 players would disrupt the entire team and leftover cohesion and will result like Lampard's Chelsea? What a great question that is. I want to talk about that. Because I also want to talk to you about something from the Manchester Evening News about the players not being confident that Erik ten Hag's the right man for the job. I really want to talk about that. So that's a great point by Ditcher. And hey Mark, this news is such a breath of fresh air. This is the way that Ten Hag gets to know the players and understand what they want and where their head is at, says Vignesh. Yeah, it gives him a massive amount of... Nick P says, Rangnick is absolutely key to Ten Hag's understanding this dressing room. It's almost like a cheat code. Most managers won't have this insight pre-job. I think it's genius. And the reason I say that is because if I'm the new manager of Manchester United, this club's going to swallow me up anyway. Massive club. Massive club. And nobody can understand how big Manchester United is unless you've lived, breathed and watched it and followed it. And even I don't know how big it is to run. But as fans, we know it's a massive club with massive expectation. And the media and the fans, it's huge. You'll never know anything like this. But on top of that, he's got to get hold of a squad that's crap. How do you do that? Individually speak to every single player who's part of the squad. That dossier from Ralph Rangnick, like Nick P says, it's a bit of a cheat code. And what it does is, when you're on holiday in June, you know, Erik ten Hag's there in his Speedos in Magaluf or whatever, suntanning himself and, you know, having a pina colada or whatever like that. He can have his notebook and pen and he can be writing some notes down about this is what this player said, this is what Rangnick said me about me, this is what this player's capable about. And knowing how meticulous and deep diving Ten Hag is, this is why he wants to do it. He will not, if I was taking over the United job, obviously I want to win the title with Ajax, but I'm thinking in my head, I don't want to be a failure. I want to prove everybody wrong. I want to be absolutely ready for this job. And the way that you do that is familiarity. I want a relationship with Ronaldo and De Gea and Bruno and Maguire and everybody else. I want that relationship ASAP. And the genius of speaking to somebody like a Paul Pogba or a Jesse Lingard or an Edison Cavani or a Juan Mata or a Matic, he will never get to speak to those players if he doesn't speak to them, if he waits till July. But if he speaks to them on a Zoom call when they're still a United player, they've got to speak to him. And I'm sure they will speak to him. And what he can learn from someone like Paul Pogba, I mean, you know, 60% of it might be complete and utter bitter bollocks. But the reality is, 40% of it might be absolutely superb. Imagine if Paul Pogba says to him, well, you know what, they should have built a team around me. We could have been great. I'd be there going, yeah, thinking about what I'm having for dinner. And then he goes, but you know what, in all honesty, the reason it went wrong is because we bought badly. You know, the dressing room just... It fundamentally hasn't got the right attitude. There's a bad attitude to training. They don't know how to win. I would have done this. And suddenly Ten Hag's like, that's the line. That's all I needed. Thanks, Paul. Enjoy PSG. And then he speaks to Lingard. And Lingard says, I've been at this club for years and years and years. I had a clothing line, this, that and the other. He's talking bollocks. But then he comes out with, but you know what? There's some cracking players in that youth system. And ultimately... having come through the youth system, you want to be part of the squad. You want to be playing Carabao Cup games. That would, you know, and suddenly you've got a little bit of information, and I think it's brilliant. I heard some people today saying, "What's the point? What's the point in Ten Hag talking to Lingard or Pogba or Cavani? What's he going to try and? He better not be trying to make them stay at the club because I don't want them to stay at the club. I don't think he's trying to make them stay at the club. I don't think they want to stay at the club. He shouldn't make them stay at the club. I'm sure Ralph Rangnick could be saying, don't make them stay at the club." But it's what you can learn. They call it an exit interview. Most businesses do it. When I was in, when I worked in banking and stuff, when I left my last job, I had an exit interview, and they ask you loads of questions about the brand, about the HR, about how they treat their staff, about visions, because there might just be a nugget of information in there. Welcome to the Members Club, John O'Donnell, and this will also help him get more players on side too, so it improves cohesion, says Emily Derry. Look. I think Nick P hit it on the head perfectly. It's like a cheat code. David Moyes came into this job nearly 10 years ago. He got rid of all the backroom staff, and I'm the boss. Scooby-Doo! Slow Sports News! Yellow tie! David Moyes, I'm in charge! Get out the door! Scooby-Doo! Fandabidozi! But it didn't work. It didn't work. He never got to grips with the club because he came in, didn't do any background work, wanted to do it his own way like he did at Everton, had people like Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic studying Phil Jagielka, and it went wrong. Erik ten Hag is going to speak to every player before he comes in. He's going to get a load of information from Ralph Rangnick, and then he's going to bring everything that he knows from what he's done at Ajax. So he's getting a threesome really. And I think it doesn't surprise me. It's not even, oh my God, he's the greatest thing ever. I mean, maybe Jurgen Klopp did this. I don't know. Maybe Pep Guardiola did it. Pep Guardiola had a lot of background information on Man City before he went. Because correct me if I'm wrong, when Pep Guardiola went to Manchester City, I think his technical director was already in post months before, maybe even a year before. So, and also, Pep Guardiola was announced as Man City's manager around the same time that Ten Hag was. I think it's April, sort of March time. So there was a lot of preparation done as well. So maybe United have learnt from that. Certainly, Erik ten Hag will have detailed this in the interview in March. He would have been saying, look, before I even come into the job, I want this information, I want that information, I want this. And I've got to say I'm excited. I am excited by this this appointment. Whenever I hear attention to detail and meticulous, I get excited. Not in that way. It's not like that, Mrs. Goldbridge comes in and she said, "Oh, I've been meticulous in the shower. I'm ready for this." I mean, in a footballing sense, this is exciting. Meticulous planning will and should reap benefits. Sometimes you learn more from those who have nothing to lose and are leaving than those who stay and are trying to impress. Stephen, bloody exactly. That's a great point from Stephen as well. I think some people don't understand the benefit of speaking to a Paul Pogba who's going to leave anyway. But there is. Some people when they're leaving, they're bitter. When I left a job probably about 8 years ago and they did an exit interview with me, I let rip. I was like, this person's a complete snake. He's incompetent, absolutely incompetent. And, about 6 months after I'd left, they had a massive load of complaints coming in about that person. Not from me, but because they spoke to some of his staff and it unveiled a lot of bad habits, mostly about hygiene. But no, seriously, you do get the truth from people who are leaving because they want to justify why they're leaving. It's basic, physical, mental, technical aware, dumb. Says Seed. Okay. Welcome to the Members Club, Killjoy499. So I'm very, very much for this. And ultimately as well, I think it says on the thumbnail, stop moaning. Ten Hag calls out United players. Just before we move on to the next one, how many players will skip the call? Says Aryan. Well, yeah, they'll be out the club. Snakebridge. Hey, I'm not a snake. I'll say it to someone's face. There's plenty of people in this industry who gob off on videos and then you meet them in real life and you go, how you doing? Oh, I'm all right, mate. How are you doing? And I just smile because I think you're the one who slagged me off in videos and here I am. How you doing, pal? I'm absolutely great. I love what you're doing on your channel. Yeah. I ain't no snake. I'll say it to someone's face. If you can't say it to someone's face, what's the bloody point? But you know what? I think with regards to what we were talking about there, Ten Hag calling out United players, the big lesson, and I think we've touched on quite a few important bits there. But the big thing is, if you speak to these players individually and you say to them, "What do you think the issues are at the club? Do you want to be part of this club? What's your thoughts on your future at this club?" If you get one of these snake players who've been causing trouble and being toxic in the dressing room, and they say, "I'm really happy at the club. I really want to be at the club. I've got no problem with anybody." And then you've got Ranić's thing saying he's been disruptive for the last season. They're lying as well. And if you're Ten Hag, you basically say to that player, "Look, I know you've not been completely true because I've got anecdotal evidence that you've been a bit of a problem in the dressing room. Tell me what your problem in the dressing room is." And then when they tell you what the problem in the dressing room is, and Erik ten Hag says, "Right, you've told me, I know what it is. Stop moaning. If you want to be at this club and you've told me what your issue is in the dressing room, leave me to sort it out. And if you have any future problems, let me know and we'll put you on the transfer list. But don't be bloody moaning next season. I've given you your chance. I've given you a chance. You've told me you want to stay at this club. If you want to stay at this club, that's it. No more moaning. Get involved. Get involved and get behind me and the rest of the team. If you don't want to be at this club and you're going to moan next season, if you do want to be at this club and you're going to moan next season, get on the transfer list. This is your chance to get out or get on board. I don't want to see any more moaning." And I think that's the good point about it as well in my head, is it's drawing a line and saying, look, give me all your grievances. Don't take any. I tell you what, it's going to be hard enough next season as it is. I don't want to carry baggage from this season, because I look at Wikipedia and this team with you in it is one of the worst the worst team in Premier League history for Man United. I'm not having that next year. I don't want no baggage. I don't want anything from last year. This is a new era. It's a new page, and I'm not having arguments coming over from last season. So if you're telling me that person's a problem, I'm going to be speaking to them anyway, and we'll see what they've got to say. But if it's going to carry on next season, I'll get rid of both of you. Wazza, thank you very much. Welcome to the Members Club. And welcome to the Members Club, Carl Martin. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think it's a really good step forward on many different levels to speak to every single player. For the main reason is air all their grievances and shut up next season and stop moaning. And if you're going to moan, piss off this summer. Also, you're going to learn a lot from people, because I tell you what, as an ex-manager myself, not at football, but in general work, when you do your appraisals with your staff, oh my God, I used to look forward to them really a lot, because an appraisal is like your end of year, or you used to do them every 6 months where I used to work. So you sit down with your staff and you sort of like go through where you think they need to improve. And of course, to be fair and equal, they have to tell you where you can improve and also any issues they've got. And that was always the best bit. Have you got any issues with anyone else in the team? Oh God, you used to find loads of stuff out. Loads of stuff. Really good stuff as well. I mean, I can't repeat it for confidentiality of that job I used to have. But yeah, people love it. On a one-on-one, people will throw people under the bus and they'll tell you anything. They love to talk. Frank de Boer 2.0. I don't get the hype, says Will Davies. Well, don't matter. I do. Will, I'll tell you what, Will. I'm so excited about Erik ten Hag being our manager. I think he's the right choice, and I'm just so excited about it. You can say it's Frank de Boer. You can do anything you like, but you come across as a complete and utter prat, mate, because Messi's not Ronaldo. Lindelof's not Maguire. And Frank de Boer's not Erik ten Hag. You know why? Because it's simply impossible. Frank de Boer's not Ronald de Boer, and they're twins with the same mum and dad. How the fuck can Frank de Boer be Erik ten Hag? It's just a childish little argument because you're jealous. For some reason, you're jealous. I get it that rivals want us to fail, and you know what? We may well fail. But saying Erik ten Hag's the new Frank de Boer, you just come across as a fucking idiot, mate. Seriously, you do. I'm an employer. Due diligence is key. I'm liking what I hear from Ranić and ten Hag. The future is very exciting, says Nick P. I met Vidic, Brown, Schmeichel in Chennai for a live stream. Got to speak with them in short. They don't like how players act in the club, says Asher. Doesn't surprise me. Takes us on to the next point perfectly. Manchester Evening News today did an article saying that some United players in the dressing room are, looking forward to working with Erik ten Hag, but some players are a little concerned that he's not a big enough character to deal with the issues in the dressing room. To which I say, do not give a shit. Do I look like I'm bothered? You are literally the worst team I've seen in my lifetime. Facts. Absolute facts. Why do I want to listen to a bunch of shit about who the manager's coming in to deal with them? I mean, really? That's the best way of putting it. We as fans are meant to be worried that the players who've got two managers out of this club in a year, because Ranić might have got the job if he'd done well, but ultimately the players that have produced the worst Manchester United side in many of our lifetimes are concerned about the new manager who's coming in to sort them out. I mean, go figure. Go figure. It's amazing. It's almost like, I mean, there's plenty of analogies here, but imagine there's a prison, right? I'm not saying the players should be in prison. That's a bit harsh. Welcome to the Members Club, Robert. Thanks for the super chat, Robert. Imagine this. Imagine Manchester United was a prison, yeah? And all the players are the inmates, yeah? And instead, they're all in there. They all deserve to be in prison. I'm not saying what the crime is. You can use your own imagination, but they're all in prison, yeah? And instead of, lights out at 11 o'clock and, orderly doing what they're meant to be doing, they're not. They've got alcohol, they're staying up late, they're getting women and men in or whatever they like, It's just, they're running the prison how they want to run it, yeah? And basically, the governor of the prison says, oh, this is embarrassing. We're the worst prison in the world. We're getting laughed at. They've all got phones sending pictures of parties they're having. They're on Instagram. It's an embarrassment. We're an absolute joke as a prison. The public are going mad. That's punishment, is it? They're meant to be doing hard time. They're having an easy time. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. As the governor of that prison, are you going to go to the prisoners and say, who do you think we should get in to sort it all out? And then when you do get somebody good in, and the prisoners go, oh, we're not sure about him. Yeah, the only reason the United players aren't sure about Ten Hag is because they're shitting themselves. They're like, oh my God, we thought it was bad under Ranić. We might have to come in for training at 6 o'clock at night. I've got absolutely no. I've got to be honest. I'd be worried if the United squad was excited about Ten Hag. I genuinely would be worried. Because that squad needs such a massive kick up the arse and they're so deluded. I'm actually happy that some of them aren't happy about Ten Hag. Because it makes sense then. They're so incompetent. They're so out of touch. They've been so bad this season. I wouldn't expect them to be on the same wavelength of everybody else thinking Ten Hag's a good manager. So I'm actually glad that some of them are concerned, because it's just it's just egotistical again. Oh, I don't think Ten Hag's going to be good enough to sort us out. I mean, you're acting like you're bloody Champions League winners. Champions League winners? You couldn't win the bloody championship. Like, seriously, I don't think United would win the championship at the moment. And they've got the audacity to say, oh, I don't think Ten Hag can take us to the next level. What next? You can't even take us to the Champions League. I've got no interest in what they've got to say. Ara, thank you for welcome to the Mambas Club. Mark, a new manager is good, but a lot of the same players will still be here, says Kyle. One of the first things I know Ten Hag will do is get a new keeper. We cannot carry De Gea's poor distribution performances anymore. Hey, I tell you what, mate, it's a good try. You're not going to do it. I've had this chat on Twitter. Fabrizio Romano has said that Manchester United are working on a new contract for De Gea. So you're just going to have to get used to it, mate. I'm not getting dragged into De Gea's distribution. And all I'm going to say about this is, I think we've got a sad set of fans that... Not because I've got no problem. I've said it this afternoon. If Ten Hag comes in and he buys a new goalkeeper, I'll back Ten Hag and I'll back the new goalkeeper. But what I will say about David De Gea is he's going to win Player of the Year, or he should win Player of the Year. That means he's won Player of the Year 5 times in the last 10 years. I don't know how thick you've got to be to think that a man that's won Player of the Year this season, 5 out of the last 10, is the problem. But it's his distribution. It's his distribution. Look, if the manager decides to change him, the manager decides to change him. It's absolutely not a problem. But he's one of the best shot stoppers in the world. And let's not be Player FC, because I think that needs to stop. And I'm not going to go down that route. What I will say is, we have got at least 15 major issues to solve before we start talking about a goalkeeper and his distribution. And I firmly believe that if we sort out the way we play football, distribution won't be such a problem. Because I see United time and time again give the ball back to David De Gea on his wrong foot with 2 or 3 strikers running on him, and United defenders and midfielders just turning their back, and he ends up booting it out of touch. So I think actually it's more of a team thing. We don't move the ball very well anyway. We've got midfielders in Matic and McTominay who had a combined pass of 73, and Xhaka did 72 passes and El Nini did 71. That's abysmal. So people are talking about distribution. Go and look at our midfielders this season and how many passes they're playing, and it's abysmal. Sometimes it's 50% of what a Norwich midfielder's doing against us. So there's loads of problems with that team. And in season 1, if we spent money on a new goalkeeper, I'd go mad. I would. I'd go, what are you doing buying a new goalkeeper? We don't need a new goalkeeper in year 1, maybe in year 2. As you said last week, I believe we might need 1 plus sacrificial lambs and go even lower in order for complete rebuild. Lose sponsors, force Glazers to sell. Yeah, I think that's not going to happen, Leaks. They are in for a huge shock, says one of his former players. He does drills and they are not allowed to leave training until they get it right, says Gaza. Good. Mark, do you think Wan-Bissaka will stay this summer, says Kyle? Well, I'm going to do a video this week about players that I think will go. And I think Wan-Bissaka is certainly a player that United will look to get out of the club. The problem with someone like Wan-Bissaka is the same as the problem you would have if you were trying to sell Maguire, is how would you do it? Can we agree at McTominay watches the United stand that we need to look in the mirror comment was a day after you said it, says Nick Pick. Well, I hope McTominay does watch the United stand. I don't think he does, because I'm not sure that he's had a lot of praise on here. But look, I've said it time and time again. Any United player shouldn't be worried about watching fan content or looking on social media. Of course, you're going to get some people who are completely abusive and vile. I mean, that's just the way of the world, unfortunately. But actually, a lot of the frustration will be based on, you know, immediately after a game or just frustration at a terrible season. But ultimately, all fans want the best. And if McTominay suddenly turned into a really good midfielder, I think everyone would be very happy. I mean, there are some fans that just want to be proved right. They'll never change their opinion on a player. Some people just can't stand Pogba or Rashford or Bruno or De Gea, and they just won't. Varane's another one who's getting it at the moment, but most fans are logical. De Gea distribution has been good. Any coincident bad when players are hiding from the past is right. I really wouldn't get into it. The reality is the goalkeeper is not a problem in this team for the next year. The next year is about centre-back, CDM, striker, squad, mentality. And as Fabrizio Romano said this afternoon, I think this is the greatest thing when looking at the squad in general. With somebody like David De Gea, he's been at the club long enough to have won a Premier League title. He knows this club like the back of his hand. He knows the pressures. He's a leader in the dressing room. That's going to be really important next year. The same as Ronaldo. So it's not just about changing a position. It's also about, as that great question that Aditya said at the start, do you want a situation like Lampard at Chelsea where he buys loads? And remember that summer that Lampard had, and it's a great point. That summer that Lampard had, everyone, even myself, I was like, oh my God, Chelsea are going to be a real threat this season. And it went to shit because he had too many players and he couldn't keep them happy and he didn't know what his best 11 was. And too many of the players didn't really know what Chelsea was about either. And obviously Tuchel came in and they did win the Champions League, but Lampard just couldn't get his head around it. And it was chaotic. You do need, and I look at Chelsea under Tuchel, and actually some of his better players are people that were already been there. Mason Mount obviously been there a long time. Azpilicueta's been invaluable. And he wasn't brought in. So, I think there's different types of football fans. There's football fans that just want a shiny new toy. There's football fans who are just obsessed with a certain style of football and they think United should do it. And there's football fans who think, you know what, I've been watching football long enough. Or, in fairness, I know how important leadership is. Well, in this team, we have no leaders apart from Ronaldo and De Gea. Now, they're only real leaders in that team because Maguire, Varane, Bruno, they haven't really stepped up to the plate this season for different reasons. So people like De Gea and Ronaldo are going to be very important next season and they need to be kept on board. Both those players might not be here in 2 years, but for year one, I think they're very important. As I said before, what I would do with the goalkeeping situation is what we're going to do with the striking position, and I'm amazed that nobody else is really on board with this. What we're doing with Ronaldo is, we know in a year or two he's gone. We're bringing in a young striker to work with him. I would do that with the goalkeeping position. I would bring in a young goalkeeper who can work with De Gea over the next year or two to take on the baton. It's what we... Look, I don't actually rate Henderson enough. If Henderson ends up being the solution, he ends up being the solution. But I would actually be looking to bring a goalkeeper in that's better than Henderson, who's a younger goalkeeper, who can learn the ropes. There's plenty of games. There's Europa League, there's Carabao Cup, there's FA Cup. There's loads of games that you can bring a young goalkeeper in to work alongside De Gea. I think where Solskjaer got it wrong with Henderson is he allowed Henderson to think he was getting the goalkeeping spot straight away. There was no respect. It was, I want the goalkeeping shirt. I like De Gea, but I want the shirt. And actually, what he should have... That didn't work, did it? We had 2 years of this basically fighting in the media. What you want to have is an experienced player with a younger player learning the ropes and gradually taking the spot off him. It's the evolution, it's the passing of the guard, isn't it? That's going to happen with Ronaldo and the striker. It probably should be happening in other positions as well. Mark, what are your thoughts on today's report saying Timber would be Erik Ten Hag's first signing? Do you think there's a chance he comes with Erik, says Oz? Well, I'd listened to what Fabrizio Romano said. It was a very good interview this afternoon. If you've not watched it because you're at school or work or college or just pissed, whatever, I would watch that Romano interview. It's very short, but it goes through a lot of things. Interestingly, it feeds into the next thing I wanted to talk about anyway, which is in the Telegraph, which is Man United will 100% sign a centre-back. I think it's very safe to say that we're going to buy one or two out of these three. Torres, Pau, Akanji, Dortmund, and a Timber. Now, I think we might buy one, but we might buy two. I would like to buy two. I would love to buy Timber and Torres. I think it would revolutionise the way that we're going to play. I hope you're well. How quick are we going to be in the transfer window, says Side. I don't see any reason why we can't be quick in the transfer window, to be honest. I don't see any point. I don't see why. I think it's a very good question. For the players on loan, do you see any future for them? Can I come back to that, actually? It's a good question, Marcus, because I know that Brandon Williams has said that he wants to stay, so I think it's a good question there. And Real Madrid had the most toxic and divided dressing room at around 2012. Mourinho, we got through it somehow, so don't worry, says Zoom. Yeah, the only way is up. The only way is up, isn't it? But just going back to that question on the transfer window, I don't know what people's observations are, but I've not really thought about how quick... I've not really thought about how quick we might act in the transfer window. But when you think about it, it makes sense for United to get a lot of business done in June. Now, I don't know when the transfer window officially opens. Sometimes it officially opens at like 20th of May. But I presume it will open up at the start of June. Now, for me, it's very obvious that we should be doing a lot of business in June. And the reason for that is because there's no World Cup, there's no Euros. So there's no players off on international duty, although there is. I just realised England are playing 4 Nation Leagues games in early June to mid-June, which means a lot of other international clubs will be as well. So even though it should be a summer off for players, if you're Jadon Sancho, if you're Harry Maguire, you're going to finish the season, you're going to play for England until mid-June, you're going to have 2 weeks off, and then you're going to be back for pre-season to go to Thailand. It's not a long break again, is it, after a long season? It really just piss me off that there's 4 England games at the start of June. But ultimately, we're going to be going to Thailand and Australia in July. We're going to come back and we're going to start the Premier League season at the start of August. And there's no international breaks. The next international break is the end of September. So from the start of August to the end of September, probably going to play 7 or 8 Premier League games. So there's nowhere to hide. There's no international break to get your transfers in. You don't really want to be doing your transfers in July because any new signings won't join up until the players come back from being on tour. If you're a new basically what I'm trying to say in a long way, and apologise, is that if I'm signing for Man United and they've got a new manager, look, pick a player. Let's say Calvin Phillips. Let's say Calvin Phillips is coming to Man United, yeah? If I'm Calvin Phillips and I know that Erik ten Hag starts his job on July the 1st, and then on July the 6th, they're flying out to Thailand and Australia, and United are working on a deal with me, but in mid-July it's still not sorted. I'm going to be like, well, I ain't starting the season for you, am I? He's out there in Australia training with Fred and Van der Beek and Bruno and McTominay, and I'm here in bloody England sorting out this bloody deal we've been trying to sort out for 6 weeks. I want to be there. I want to be there from day one. Because it's a new start for everybody. So I want to be part of that new start. I don't want to be coming in when he's already been looking at Fred and McTominay and Bruno and Donny and thinking he's going to use them. I want to be there. So I think that it probably won't happen, but it's in everybody's best interest, and that's the key. It's in everybody's best interest, the player and the club, to get these deals done so that they're all going on tour together with a brand new start. So June should be active for Manchester United. Intrigued to see if Man United will look at a fullback this summer. It's such an important position on a Ten Hag system. Goalkeeper is the least of our concerns, says Vignesh. Oh, you know what though? You know what I'm like. I'll always, and I think the community is the same, we'll always face up to a topic and discuss it. But as I said, I replied to somebody on Twitter about this today. Like, they were trying to twist my words, and I said, look, Ronaldo is probably my favourite player in that team. You can say it about De Gea, you can say it about Bruno, Luke Shaw. I don't care. Let's use Ronaldo as the example instead of De Gea or somebody else for a moment. If the season starts and we buy, I don't know, Darwin Núñez and Ronaldo's on the bench for the first 5 games of the season, I'm not going to be Ten Hag out after 5 games. I won't agree with it. I'll still think Ronaldo should play because I think he's amazing. But if Ten Hag decides Ronaldo's on the bench and Darwin Núñez is starting up front, that's fine. I don't agree with it, but it's fine, because that's what getting behind a new manager is all about. It worries me that people are putting words into my mouth and saying, oh, you know what, if Ten Hag comes in and he changes this player, Goldbridge will be Ten Hag out. No, well, I won't. I actually won't. And the great thing is that you'll see that I won't be. But the fact that some people are saying that means that it must be in their head, which means next season we're still going to have these fans that if he drops Bruno or he drops Ronaldo or he drops Maguire, or, you know, because every player's got a fan club, they'll be going, oh yeah, we should have got Poch. And that really worries me. I think it's so important that it's called out, and that if we are behind this manager, it doesn't matter what he does. What if he says, I'm not buying a centre defensive midfielder? I don't want one. I want a fullback. I want 2 fullbacks, 2 centre-backs and a forward. I don't need a midfielder. Now, admittedly, I would sit there and go, oh my God, he doesn't want a centre defensive midfielder. But I'd go, this is really interesting. What's he going to do then? What's he seen in the youth? What does he think he can get out of McTominay and Fred? Is he going to use Donny there? So we will buy a midfielder, of course we will. It's the most logical thing in the world. But if we didn't, this ain't Ollie. This ain't Mourinho. This is a brand new manager, and you've got to give him your backing. And therefore, you've got to get rid of any prejudice you've got in your head, whether it's a player, we need to buy this player, we need to start this player, we need to drop this player. He's in charge. And if you go in with any prejudice, then you're going to end up Ten Hag out. You will, because you can't do that. I don't think you can do that. I think you've got to go in with it with a completely open mind. And if he drops one of your favourite players and never plays them again, well, yeah, it's not great, but it's Man United. It's not that player. I think Ten Hag will insist on getting transfers done as early as possible to give him more time to work with the players. Yeah, 100%, Stephen. He'll certainly be asking for that. That's the challenge for Man United now. And I keep saying this. The first step was getting Erik Ten Hag. The second step is getting the coaches and everything in that he wants. The third step, and most of the summer, is can this board deliver quick signings for him, or will he get nothing very quick? And that's not going to be on Ten Hag. Intrigued to see if Man United will look at a fullback this summer. It's such an important position, says Vignesh. Now, this is a good point from Vignesh, because I don't know whether anybody saw it today. I think Brandon Williams has said that he wants to be at Man United next season and play at left back. Now, I think somebody said about loan players, and I think it's worth spending a couple of minutes on it. But I think that Brandon Williams thing is really well timed, because I haven't watched a lot of Norwich this season, I'll admit, but the reports about Brandon Williams have sort of been mixed. I think he's been good, and obviously playing in a team that's going to get relegated, sometimes you're not going to look that good either. It's difficult. I mean, I remember United bought Roy Keane for a British transfer record for 3.6 million. Forest got relegated. But Blackburn wanted him. He was brilliant, but they got relegated. So just because you've been relegated doesn't mean you're a bad player. So Calvin Phillips could get relegated for Leeds and we might sign him. So you can't just say that because he's been relegated he's had a bad season. But we'll start with Brandon Williams because he said that. So he wants to stay at Manchester United. But no problem with that. It's great that he wants to stay at Man United. My issue with Brandon Williams is the same. He broke into the team and looked really good and then disappeared and didn't get picked. But my big problem with him is why is he playing at left back? He's not very good with his left foot. He's right-footed. What team uses a left back who's right-footed? And that's my issue with him. So surely if he's going to have a future at this football club, he's got to be as a right back. Now, unless things have changed massively at Norwich, he's not very good on his left foot. So how can he play left back for Man United when he's right-footed? So I don't know why he doesn't move to right back, because I can't see him working especially in a Ten Hag system. I can't see him working as a right-footed left back. Mark, do you believe Mitchell is coming to United? And if so, yes, when? I think we're trying to get hold of him, Said. But I mean, oh my God! Somebody's just said Cancelo. You really want me to spend time telling you why Cancelo's not Brandon Williams? Come on, Cancelo's left foot ain't that bad either, but his right foot is. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my time. The fact that people want to compare, it's like Figueroa says there. Cancelo's elite. You can't compare the two. You can't compare the two. You can't compare the two. He's a one-off, Cancelo. Cancelo's the best left-back in the Premier League. If Brandon Williams gets anywhere near him, that's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, what was that previous comment I wanted to talk about? What was it? Mitchell. I do think United are doing everything they can to get Mitchell, but it doesn't mean that we actually will. Dennis Irwin was brilliant with both feet. That's the point. Ollie used to play him left-back, but how do I play a right-footed player at left back? Hope he can put him right back and see what happens. Vignesh has either got to massively improve his left foot or put him at right back. I don't mind him having a chance at the club, but oh, here we go. Nate says Brandon Williams captain the youth team. He loves the club. Oh, put him at left back. Why didn't you say? Oh, it's fine. He captained the youth team and he loves the club. Oh, fuck it. Put him up front. What did I? The thing that sometimes mildly irritates me is that people don't listen. They half listen and they start typing away. You see it on social media and I see it in the chat sometimes. They half listen and their agenda comes up to the top and they start going blah, 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 and they're also smashing the keyboard. At what point did I say Brandon Williams isn't good enough for United? I just said he needs to play at right back because I don't think he's good enough on his left foot to play at left back. He ain't Dennis Irwin and he ain't Cancelo, and anyone who thinks he is a fool. What he needs to do is play at right back, because that's where a fullback should play when they're naturally right-footed. But you know, apparently I've said he's got no future because he's shit, which I haven't actually said. I do remember the pineapple guy, yes. What do you think about Amad Diallo? I think he should get a chance. Well, he was the next player I was going to talk about, Louis, and this is where it gets dangerous because Garner's the obvious one. I think Garner's the number one loanee out there at the moment. He's the one that is the most interesting. There are others. I think Bernard's doing well. I think Ethan Laird's doing well. There are others. But I think the high-profile one is Garner and what we're going to do with him. I personally think next season, people like Mabry and McNeil and maybe even Garnacho should be going out on loan like Garner did. I think we've finally, with our loan players, we've hit on something that works. Get them out on loan. Unless there's something really, really special, like Greenwood was. I mean, I'm not going to talk about Greenwood for obvious reasons, but as a footballer, he was talented. He got into the team very, very quickly. But I think with McNeil and Garnacho and a few others, I'd be looking to get them on loan and replicating what we've done with Garner. It's been great. The Fonz, thank you very much for joining the members club. But with Amad, that loan move to Rangers has been really disappointing. I know what you think. In fact, Tahith Chong's loan move at Birmingham has been a success. He had an injury, but he's done really well there. Now, people don't talk about Tahith Chong having a future, and I don't think he does have a future, but he's actually done quite well in the Championship for Birmingham. And he's Dutch. So, you know, you never know. There could be a player like that. And anyone who says no one thought Rashford was going to come through from the youth setup. Rashford was not Charlie McNeil or Mason Greenwood in the youth setup. Rashford was sort of the last choice. I mean, Will Keane, who's he? He was starting ahead of Rashford, and then he got injured. So Rashford came from nowhere. McTominay sort of came from nowhere. So you never know. Maybe a Tahith Chong or someone else could come from nowhere. But the two that interest me the most are, and I would give Brandon Williams a chance. I would. I just think he'd be better off at right back. There is a spot at right back as well. Why could he not play at right back? But Garner's interesting. The two I'm most intrigued by is what we're going to do with Palestri and Amad, because they were weird signings that we don't really seem to know what to do with. Amad is an amazing talent, but I don't know why it's not worked out at Rangers. That league is not as good as the Championship, I don't think, and yet he's still not been able to hit the ground running. So I don't know with Amad. There's definitely a talent there, but he's got to start using it. Nate says, I never said he was Cancel. I was trying to say that he's got quality character. Christ. Good squad player, says Nate. Well, explain yourself better than Nate. I don't actually think that being a youth team captain and loving the club is anything. Unfortunately, you're right, Nate, actually. It has become something that we value massively, but we shouldn't. We shouldn't value it massively. It should just be a standard. The reality is, unfortunately, people like Fred and McTominay and David De Gea and Cristiano Ronaldo this season are getting credit because they actually do care about the club. And many of these players don't. But we need to get to a point where, like a Man City, where they've got the right attitude, but they're also some of the best players in the world. I think at the moment, we've got a handful of players with the right attitude, but some of those players probably aren't even good enough to play for United, but they've got the right attitude. We need more Ronaldos, more De Geas, more Sanchos with the right attitude and the right talent. And that's the thing that's going to be really important. Twitter, Elon Musk, here we go. Well, if he makes everyone be verified, it will certainly make a big difference, won't it? Surprised Palestri not doing well at Alaves. Well, this is the problem, Lynn. Palestri and Amad, they're not doing particularly well on either loan deal. And you know, again, it's hard, isn't it? Because they're actually two signings that aren't British signings. They I was quite excited about those. One coming in from Uruguay, one coming in from Serie A. I actually thought we looked like we might have scouted a couple of good players there, but. Yeah, I mean, what I would say is if there's talent there, Eric Ten Hag will find it, especially with younger players. So I think, look, what did we start the show with? He's going to speak to every player. And I think that's almost going to be an interview for those players. What's their attitude? What's their hunger? How honest are they going to be? I think if I was a player and we didn't say this. Look, if you tune in a little bit late, Erik ten Hag's going to have a Zoom call or an interview with every United player before he joins, and that will include people like Pogba and everybody. So the great thing about that is that if Erik ten Hag's a good interviewer and is open and honest and direct with those players, he's also going to have notes that Rangnick's given him. So if he sits and talks to one of the troublemakers and they go, yeah, everything's fine, I'm really looking forward to next season, yeah. And he's like, well, Rangnick's told me that this person's a backstabber, he just can't be arsed, this, that and the other. And then you're not getting the truth from him in the interview. I'd be worried if I was a United player when I'm having that chat with Ten Hag. Unless there was one or two, three or four players. Because I'd be like, he already knows what Rangnick's told him. It's not. It's like being told off by your parents, isn't it? When you were younger, if you've ever had that, where you don't know what they know, and you're like, I'm giving you this chance to tell the truth. You're only getting one chance, and you're like, do I tell the truth and get credit for it, or do they actually not know what I've done and they're just trying to get out of me, and I'll lie and then I'll get away with it? And that's very much what United players are walking into, isn't it? Because Erik ten Hag is basically giving them an opportunity to tell the truth. And if they lie and say, oh, no, everything's fine. Yeah, he already knows the truth because Rangnick's told it him. So it's an opportunity to learn a lot about these players because he knows they've been arseholes. He knows there's been issues in the dressing room. And look, even somebody like... Imagine someone like David De Gea or Cristiano Ronaldo. They've performed on the pitch this season. He interviews them and says, how do you think the season went? Well, individually I think I probably did all okay, but I'm just not happy with how we've done. Any issues in the dressing room? No, it's fine. But that will be a lie. Because you can't sit in that dressing room as a first team player and not know what's gone on in it. So even the Ronaldos and the De Geas and the Sanchos, even though they've done relatively well on the pitch, when he asks them about the dressing room, he knows they're lying if they say, oh yeah, not much happened really. Yeah, Pogba did a bit of dancing once, and Ronaldo was doing some press-ups, and but that was about it. It's like, that's not the truth, is it? So he'll learn something from everybody. To bring up the De Gea non-issue again, I would be so happy if he was the big issue we had. Says I think that's a great point, Ice. Absolutely brilliant point. I wish David De Gea was the biggest issue in the club, because if he was the biggest issue in the club, we would be comfortably fighting for titles, looking to improve the distribution of our goalkeeper. I think that's the best way of looking at it. It's probably the best explanation I've ever seen. If Ronaldo and De Gea are the biggest two problems in our team, we're laughing, because you can replace them. But it means everything else in the team's fine. What excites me about Erik ten Hag will look all the players and will not be led by default selection, says Tidy Brown. And could there be some players who are dumb enough to think they could lie to Ten Hag? They know he'll talk with Rangnick. There might be, Stephen. And straight away, if you lie to him, then you come across as a bit of a snake, really, don't you? So, yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. But you know what as well? I think... let's not pretend everything's going to be completely rosy in the garden. Erik ten Hag will have favourites. Of course he will. Everybody has to have favourites. Whether you're a McDonald's, whether you're working in a bank, whether you're working down a pit, whether you're working in a pub, you will have people who work for you who you can trust. Will get the job done. They call him a steady Eddie or a steady Irene. Basically... you give them a shift, you give them a job, and they're going to get the job done 8 out of 10 every time. 8 out of 10 every time. They may not be capable of a 10 out of 10, but they're not going to drop a 6 out of 10. They're the favourites. And Erik ten Hag will have those favourites. And Erik ten Hag's favourites could be new signings. It could be Donny van der Beek. It could be Bruno. It could be Ronaldo. It could be De Gea. It could be Luke Shaw. It could be McTominay. It could be Fred. I don't know who it could be Rashford. Who knows who his favourites are going to be? And he will have favourites. But the whole point is they've got to be able to deliver. And I just want to say this. Ten Hag wants Andreas Pereira. Jay Lings fam. Oh my God. I've seen this twice in the last few days. That Andreas Pereira, if he can't do a deal with is it Flamengo? They want him back at the club. I don't know what to say about it. I suppose the one thing I would say is There was a tweet I did a few years ago saying we don't need James Rodriguez. We've got Pereira. He's going to be one of the best number 10s in the world. Maybe that tweet could become one of the greatest tweets ever. Erik ten Hag brings pre-season Pirlo back and he turns into a great player. But no, I'd be stunned on that one. Vandy Candy says that he's going to unlock Pereira. I do not think that Pereira is unlockable. I don't think there's a key that can unlock Andreas Pereira, to be honest. I might be wrong, but I don't think there is. There ain't no lock you're going to find to unlock Andreas Pereira. But look, I'll tell you what, it's a great example because it's a less contentious issue. If Ten Hag wants Pereira back and thinks he can get something out of him, is anyone going to say no? Is anyone going to go Ten Hag out? I mean, ultimately, he's the best example. Forget any other position. Forget the Brunos or the Maguires or the De Gea's or the Ronaldos. Pereira is probably the best example of the lot. If he brings Pereira back and wants to use him, let him try. Surely that's what it's all about. But I'd be stunned. Anyway, I forgot something that I do want to talk to you about. I saw a fantastic tweet earlier, and effectively they had a scenario, and I think it was either Timber. It was one of the Ajax centre backs. I think it might have been Timber. I don't think it was Daley Blind. And they had this situation where Timber's sort of in the position that Lindelof is there, and the ball's there. And instead of going to Tellez or going backwards, he basically threads a pass about 30 yards into the number 10 through a gap that's about 5 metres wide between 3 players. And straight away, the number 10 turns. They've took half the opposition out, and they're in. Look, not on goal, but they're creating something. Now, obviously, United, the way that we play, that we wouldn't even try and do that. But it raised the points on... I'll take Ji-Sung Park, he's now over, Andreas, says Oz. It raised a point on Twitter where basically somebody said, who out of our centre-backs can play that pass consistently? Maybe 5 times a game. Who can pick that ball up there and arrow it into Bruno's feet, 30, 40 yards through 2 defenders, like Ajax look to do it. And I think it's a great point. And I think that goes back to what I was talking about at the start of the show, about United, whether we need 2 centre-backs or 1 centre-back. We might need 2. We might need 2 centre-backs, because if Varane's got injury problems anyway, you play with 2 centre-backs. You want them both to be able to play a pass like that. You want them both to have it in their repertoire to do that. Now, look, Timber's got the ability to do that. I don't think Maguire's got it in his locker to play a pass like that. I think he can do it, but I don't think it's natural to him to do it. Along the ground, I don't think that's in. I don't think Maguire's a centre back that can really put a powerful pass forward along the ground 30, 40 yards accurately. I don't think that's his game at all. And remember, he wouldn't be able to do it from there because he's right-footed. So, he'd have to be doing it from here. I think he can do it, but I don't think he can do it 5 or 6 times a game along the ground accurately with the right sort of pace into somebody's feet. I don't think he can. I mean, sometimes he struggles to put it onto De Gea's right foot from unopposed. So I don't think Maguire's that sort of a centre-back. I'm not slagging him off. I just don't think he is. I think Lindelof can do it. Again, I think he'd be better off doing it on that side. In fact, yeah, Lindelof would have to be on that side to do it. But yeah, I agree. I think we need to bring in. I would like to think we can bring in 2 centre-backs if that's what we want to do. And I think it highlights massively just how important that aspect of what Ten Hag wants to do is. His Ajax team regularly has 60-70% possession. You've got to have people who can play that sort of football. But also, what I want to say as well is, and just dropped into my head, I think we need to buy centre-backs who can play that sort of game, definitely. But anybody can be developed into a better passer of the ball. I firmly believe that. Passing, as I said, McTominay hardly ever passes. He's hardly on the ball. That can be coached. Surely it can be coached. But Raphael Varane can do that. I don't get why Varane has become a negative. I wanted to bring it. It's almost not a show in itself, but we almost needed longer. I don't get why Raphael Varane has suddenly become a negative point in our fan base. I don't get it. I know he's been injured a lot, but he can't control that. But when we're talking about passing out from the back, I actually watched Varane a lot for Real Madrid, mainly in the Champions League because they won it 3 years in a row and I always watch Champions League football. But also I've watched him a lot play for France. And I think we've almost forgotten that Varane is very, very good on the ball. Varane is a good passer of the ball, as well as being quick, good in the air. I think he's had a very, 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 very frustrating first season at Manchester United. And I think he did look rusty against Arsenal, but he still looked at one of our best centre-back in my opinion. So I don't think we should sleep on Varane. I do think Varane is a player that if you followed his career, and there's a fantastic, I don't know whether it's on Amazon Prime now, but I watched it again last summer just before we bought him. His career, he ain't some bloody hoof-it centre-back as well. He's a cultured centre-back. So the question with Varane is his injury record. Is it going to get worse? Is he 29 now? But he can play football. He can play football. I must admit, I have not seen much of Timber, but I did see their last game against NEC and he was excellent. He created so many chances, says Mohammed. Well, a lot of people think that we might bring Timber in and put him at right back, but I think it's very important that we do give him a chance at centre back if we bring him in as well. AJ says, "What's your thoughts on Maguire and Shaw stories?" What story? I'm gonna predict the story you're talking about. Oh, this makes me laugh as well. Mark, do you think Ten Hag will like Maguire, says Jayling's fan? I think he'll be here next year. I do think he'll be here yesterday. I mean, look, Glitch says Varane is a terrible passer. Mate, you don't play for Real Madrid for that long and France for that long if you can't pass the ball. And this is what I mean. It's such a dangerous world we live in football now because people just rewrite the past. They decide that a player's shit. He's won 3 Champions Leagues in a row. He's won a World Cup. He ain't doing that because Real Madrid couldn't buy another centre-back from anywhere else in the world. He can pass the ball. He's a very good centre-back. We haven't seen the best of him at United. I do agree. It's been a very stop-start season, but he's definitely a good passer of the ball. In relation to the Maguire, it's Varane's birthday today. In relation to Maguire and Luke Shaw, it makes me laugh because we had Fabrizio on the show today, and there was a quote that came out that Bruno, Maguire and Shaw are 100% not the toxic players that Rangnick is going to feed to Erik Ten Hag. If anyone watched the show, I loaded that question for Fabrizio. I said to him, because I said on the show this morning, I categorically know that Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes are not on the list that Ten Hag's going to get from Rangnick saying that they're toxic. So I loaded that question for Fabrizio. I said, I don't know what you've heard about the dressing room, Fabrizio, but I've heard that Luke Shaw, Bruno and Harry Maguire are not players that Ralph Rangnick's going to tell Erik Ten Hag are toxic in relation to they won't train properly, they're downing tools. So I knew that already, and I just got it verified by Fabrizio. I had people today saying, oh, Goldbridge is going to be crying about that. If I would have been crying about it, I would have kept quiet about it and I wouldn't have even asked Fabrizio about it on the show. The only reason it's come up today is because some people on Twitter have started putting Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes and Harry Maguire on this list of players that are being disruptive against Ralph Rangnick, which they're not. They are involved in arguments in the dressing room, but they're not on Rangnick's toxic list. As I keep saying, there's 2 different things going on in the United dressing room. There are players that don't get on with each other, of which everybody's involved in that. Everybody's not getting on. But then there's also players who are downing tools against Rangnick. And there are players that aren't. And Ronaldo, De Gea, Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes and others, but those definitely are not downing tools on Ralph Rangnick. They might not be getting on with each other, but they're not downing tools on Rangnick. There are people in that dressing room who are not getting on with each other and downing tools. And that's the point. And why would anybody have a problem with that? Because it's the truth. You know, just because I think people go, oh, I can't stand Luke Shaw, I can't stand Bruno, I can't stand Harry Maguire, he's shit. Well, you might be right. I would try and sell Maguire. I don't think he's a modern centre-back. But I'm not going to character assassinate him and say that he's the problem in the dressing room for Rangnick and he's downing tools, because it's not true. We should also look at PSV, like Timber can play as centre-back and right-back, so very versatile, plus very agile as well, says Jameson Gray. Tezzy, sorry. Anyway, look, I could talk and talk all night. It's been a fantastic show. We have got... We're back tomorrow, aren't we? Welcome to the Members Club Wisdom. Yes, thank you everybody who is a member. Thanks for joining. Remember, if you are a member, it's a with a member, click the join button. We've got a poll for you on the community tab for the members to vote for this week's exclusive video. There's exclusive video content for our members now as a thank you. You get your badge next to your name as well. So thank you very much for joining the Members Club if you have. I really appreciate you supporting the channel. We've got some really exciting things coming up over the next few weeks, and we'll keep putting that exclusive content out for you as well. Of course, if you're not a member or you can't become a member, no problem. You'll still get your same free content as you've always had on the United Stand. This is just additional stuff to thank people who support us. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you take care of yourselves, and I will speak to you soon. Who do you think are the toxic players in the locker room? I can't tell you, Louis. I'm not gonna call it out. I don't think it needs to be called out by me. Thanks. I can tell you who it's not, and that's come out today. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will speak to you all very soon tomorrow morning. Have a great evening, day, whatever you're doing. Stay safe, put a smile on your face, and take care. I'll speak to you all in a bit.